United States has long been seen as Earth's strongest, most unshakable nation. But what if tomorrow the US suddenly fell apart, leaving its states to fend for themselves? Here are the 7 states that wouldn't last a week if the US collapsed tomorrow. Starting with Hawaii, which is barely hanging on to survive. At first glance, Hawaii looks like a utopia, with stunning beaches, lush landscapes, and an uncanny reputation. But all that beauty hides a vulnerability deeper than almost any other state. Hawaii is separated from the mainland by more than 2,000 miles of ocean, which makes it one of the most isolated places in the world. Nearly 90% of its food, fuel, and consumer goods arrive by ship or plane. Take away federal control of shipping routes or the flow of imports, and the state would unravel almost immediately. The islands produce some crops like coffee, pineapples, and tropical fruits, but the landmass is far too small to feed over 1 million residents for long. In fact, Hawaii currently imports around 85% of its food supply. Without outside support, supermarkets would be bare in days, not weeks. To add to that, the state's heavy reliance on imported oil for electricity quickly turns it from paradise into a survival challenge. If Hawaii's weakness comes from isolation, Nevada is surrounded by a desert that makes survival nearly impossible. Nevada shines bright at night due to the Las Vegas Strip, but underneath those neon lights lies one of the most resource-scarce states in America. More than 90% of Nevada's land is desert or semi-arid terrain, which means farming is extremely limited. The state depends heavily on trucking and imports from California and surrounding states just to keep its population fed. But the real Achilles heel is water. Nevada relies on the Colorado River, which has been shrinking for years due to drought and overexploitation. The iconic Lake Mead Reservoir is at a historically low level, and it supplies water to Las Vegas and surrounding communities. Right now, federal agreements control how that water is shared, but if the US collapsed, those agreements would vanish overnight. Neighboring states like California and Arizona would fight to secure their own survival, and Nevada would be left with almost nothing. Food shortages plus a water crisis would create a nightmare scenario. But while Nevada dries out in the desert, Alaska seems to be too far out and isolated. Alaska is larger than Texas, California, and Montana combined. Yet with its vast size, it hides major weaknesses. While Alaskans are known for their rugged independence, the state itself is one of the most dependent in the country. About 1/3 of its economy comes directly from federal spending through defense bases, infrastructure projects, and federal jobs. Remove that support, and the economy shrinks dramatically overnight. The geography makes things even harder. Winters regularly drop to -40 degrees Fahrenheit in the interior, and snow can cut off entire towns for months. Most rural communities depend on small planes to deliver supplies, mail, and even medical supplies. Farming is minimal due to the short growing season, which means food already has to be imported from other places. Even in Anchorage, grocery prices are among the highest in the nation because of shipping costs. So while Alaskans are tough, the state's remoteness and reliance on federal systems would make survival beyond a week or two a brutal challenge. Although Alaska struggles with space and isolation, New Jersey shows how overcrowding can be just as deadly. New Jersey is the most densely populated state in the US, cramming nearly 9 million people into an area smaller than some western counties. Do you know what that density means? It means the state depends almost entirely on imports to survive. New Jersey does have farmland, but not enough to feed its millions of people. Instead, it relies on constant shipments from neighboring states and international ports. Now, imagine those systems gone. In less than a week, food and fuel would run short, and competition for resources would explode. Crowded cities like Newark, Jersey City, and Camden would face the worst of it, with people competing over dwindling supplies. With New York City just across the Hudson River, one of the hungriest and most demanding urban centers in the world, the pressure would double. Without the federal government maintaining trade and transportation, New Jersey would turn into a flashpoint of scarcity and unrest almost instantly. Even though New Jersey might crumble under density, Louisiana is under the sheer force of nature. Louisiana is already one of the most disaster-prone states in America. Between Hurricanes Katrina, Rita, and Ida, the state has been devastated multiple times in the last 2 decades. Each time, recovery has depended on billions of dollars in federal aid. Without FEMA, without federal emergency funds, Louisiana would be left on its own against rising waters and violent storms. The state's geography makes it even more fragile. Most of southern Louisiana is below sea level, protected only by levees that require constant federal investment. Remove that maintenance, and flooding would overtake entire communities. Coastal erosion is another silent threat. Louisiana loses the equivalent of a football field of land to the sea every 100 minutes. Economically, Louisiana depends heavily on oil and gas, industries that require stable global trade. If the system collapsed, those industries would stall, throwing the state into further chaos. In short, Louisiana's exposure to both natural disasters and economic fragility means it wouldn't last long without national support. While Louisiana risks drowning, Arizona faces a relentless shortage of water. Arizona's downfall would be summed up in 2 words: water scarcity. For decades, the state has been one of the fastest growing in America, with Phoenix now the 5th largest city in the nation. Yet its water supply hasn't kept up. More than 5 million Arizonans depend on the Colorado River, which scientists warn is drying up faster than expected. Currently, federal contracts regulate how much water each state gets, so that Arizona won't be left scrambling. Agriculture also consumes vast amounts of water, nearly 70% of all freshwater use in the state. Without oversight, farms would fail, and cities would run dry. One of the alarming concerns is for Phoenix or Tucson in summer, when temperatures soar past 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Trust me, Arizona doesn't want that. On top of that, Arizona imports most of its fuel and goods through interstate highways. If trucking stopped, the desert environment would leave residents stranded with little chance of survival. The state's growth has outpaced its natural resources, making collapse not just possible, but inevitable in a crisis. Although Arizona suffers from environmental scarcity, Mississippi's collapse comes from chronic poverty and fragile infrastructure. Mississippi ranks near the bottom in nearly every measure of economic and social strength. About 19% of its population lives in poverty, the highest rate in the nation. The state's healthcare system is weak, with many rural hospitals already closing even under federal support. You know, one of the most disheartening parts? Mississippi has some of the most deteriorated roads and bridges in the country. Without that federal funding, transportation would grind to a halt. Not only that, the economy is small and heavily dependent on agriculture and low-wage jobs, which don't generate enough revenue to sustain the state on its own. In a nationwide collapse, Mississippi wouldn't just struggle, it would spiral almost immediately into crisis. Poverty, weak healthcare, and poor infrastructure form a triple threat that would drag the state down faster than almost any other. So, if the U.S. collapsed tomorrow, don't be surprised if these states would be the first to fall. Some wouldn't last more than a week before breaking down completely. But here's a real question. How safe is your state if the system collapses? Let us know in the comment section below. While you're at it, kindly give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Until next time, thank you for watching.